Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope everybody's doing great today. So we are going to be doing another kind of design inspired pen blank. We're going to come up with a new pen blank based on an inspiration by Mr. Cooper. He sent me an email and he's had a couple of really cool ideas, and I thought, let's do it again. I really enjoy doing these kind of inspired pen blanks. It's what I would say it's probably what I like doing the best. It's, naturally I'll come into the shop and just kind of play around with colors anyway. So why don't we, have fun doing it on the stream is kind of my thing. And so that's what we're going to do today. Let's see here. It looks like Mark's making, or was working on a improved plywood storage rack. I've gone through a few iterations of I'm guessing you mean like plywood storage, like sheet storage. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I've had a few of those things in my life. I have a pretty good one right now, but the problem is it's kind of tucked in the corner, which is where I want it, but I've also stacked a bunch of stuff in front of it, and so I can't even get into it, basically. I don't really use a lot of plywood anyway at this point. That's why it's kind of in the corner, buried, but it's pretty cool. So good luck with that. I know it's kind of an undertaking doing that, especially if you're dealing with like full-size sheets of plywood. It's a pretty big storage kind of thing a lot of times, and so it takes a little ingenuity to kind of come up with a really cool idea. So let's see here. It looks like Mike was here first, and we got Paul's here. Hugh will come back for the replay. That's cool. And Brian's here. And Lelia. Let's see here. Who else? Jim and David Clausen. And Chris is here. Cool. Old Man River. Yes, sheet goods. It keeps trying to kill you. I've been there too. Yeah, I came up with a couple of different ones. I had one where you stored them on their sides and it kind of like pulled out, I think is how this was. I mean, this was like 15 years ago in a 2-car garage. And so I think that I had it like back, and then I had a jointer in front of that. So it was, two-car garage type things when you have like a pretty much full-on like wood shop. I mean, I had a jointer, planer, table saw, router table, I think in there. Maybe not a router table, I'm not sure. A woodworking bench, like, I mean, it was like full on, drill press, all the stuff you need. And so in a 2-car garage, pretty much you need to move everything. It's like playing one of those little puzzle games where you have to move everything around in circles basically to get to the thing that you need. So it's cool. I hope the new iteration works good for you. Cool. All right, so real quick, I'm going to show you guys. Well, first off, I'll show you what well, you guys saw that fish picture. Excuse me, picture for the thumbnail of this. That is what we're going to be trying to make a blank that represents. So I'm going to put up. I actually did something ahead of time, guys. Look at this. There's a new scene on the on the stream. So this is the picture that we're going to go for, and frankly, it was kind of funny because Cooper was like, oh, I can't believe you're going to do this. And I'm like, this one's not really, for me, compared to the alien desert thing, I think this one's going to be pretty much, I don't know, pick some colors and pour them. I can't talk right now. I don't know what's going on with my voice. So looking at this picture, I'm identifying, we got obviously orange is pretty well represented. There's like a teal kind of color. I don't know, teal, aqua, I don't know, whatever. There's a blue. And I don't know, the thing is with this picture, there's a couple of like there's like a lighter orange. I don't know if that's really worth messing with. It's just because it's like a thin part of the fish. And then there's like some darker areas that also look like that blue. So, I mean, really, you're kind of looking at, I don't know. I mean, like, it's really just kind of 3 colors are the main colors in this fish. There is a little bit lighter blue on the kind of top front fin right above his head. As compared to the tips of the fins in the back, that's a little bit more of a kind of a darker, vibrant blue. There's maybe some light blue. We could maybe add a little bit of that. But I mean, overall, this is going to be pretty much, I think, kind of slam dunkish. And it should be a pretty cool looking pen blank because these colors, you know, I don't know about you guys, but this picture, the colors really grab me. You know, like they look good together, let's say. So I think this one's going to be pretty simple. You know, I'm not going to be able to make like patterns like are on that fish. I mean, we're dealing with liquid resin. It's very difficult to get thin lines of stuff, especially I'm going to be pouring it vertically using the Gatling mold. I think it's going to be fairly difficult to really mimic that in any way, but we can put the colors together and we can kind of play around with like how we pour it a little bit, the ratios of how much color, because looking at it, you know, the blue is really just an accent color, the darker kind of vibrant blue, and then the lighter blue. There's very little of that lighter blue. I think it's a good one to add the light blue in there as well, though, just to give it a little bit of extra contrast. It'll kind of add a little bit of fun to it, I think. And then obviously the heavy color is orange. I think that's the biggest amount in that fish. And then I'd say like the teal color is probably like your second largest. So we can kind of alter the amounts of resin that we are, you know, mixing up, basically, or amounts of colors that we're, you know, mixing up for this thing to try to kind of give it that look. The other thing we can do is kind of look at where are the colors on the fish, and then try to create, like, pour those colors at those times in the pen blank, you know. So I don't know. I think it'll be a pretty fun one. I was excited when he sent that email in, and yeah, cool. So anyway, hopefully you guys will enjoy this. Hey, there he is. Cooper's here. Nice. Ah, the wood butcher's here. Cool. Yeah. Hey, Chris, I'm doing good. Doing pretty good. Yep. The weather, man. I'll tell you what. The weather has been amazing up here. I mean, like 70 degrees. Like it's November, and it's like. Phew. Although the snowboarder in me is like, okay, it's time to snow. Let's get some snow in the mountains. So, let's see here. Timothy McCain, first time catching me live. Cool. Well, welcome to the stream. Let's see here. Who else we got? Song Dog Customs. Welcome. And Steve Hogg. That's why we do the replays. Let me know what you think at the end. You get to kind of go through, technically I shouldn't even be telling you this because it does, you know, YouTube loves people hanging out on YouTube and spending time. But the nice thing about the replays is since we talk a lot on this, you can kind of skip ahead to the good parts, and you can also, a lot of times, I mean, I pretty much, when I'm watching YouTube stuff, it's on minimum like 1.5 times speed just to kind of get through it. I could probably even go on two times speed and it wouldn't be that bad. I don't know. Weather's been cold. Ugh. That's no fun. It was kind of cool. We went on a hike. So Thursday is my wife and I, our day off. And we went on a hike, a new one up in Tahoe. There's this huge waterfall when you're going over Highway 50. There's like the summit, and then you kind of come down a little ways, and there's like this weird kind of corner area where it's the mountains are just, it's just like a huge granite slab. Like it's different than, it doesn't look like dirt. It's literally just rocks. And there's this waterfall that comes down, and I've wanted to hike up there for a long time, but there's like a paid parking lot, and I'm like, oh my God. There's so many free places to park and go hiking up in Tahoe that it's been on like the low end of the list. But we finally went up there on Thursday, and it was pretty killer up there. It was and it was, like I said, perfect temperature and everything. We're having a good fall up here. It's pretty nice. All right, so one quick thing. I'm going to switch over to the overhead view. So just in case you missed it, last week we turned an ornament. And this thing was pretty cool. So again, I was playing around with the idea of using threading for something other than, you know, just a custom pen, or like a mandrel holding type of a deal, like stoppers. You know, you do threading a little bit with stoppers. I don't know. Those are the kind of the standard things that we use threading for. But you know, a lot of people are getting into. Man, what is up with my voice today? Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. A lot of people are getting into custom pen making. So, which means, if you're getting into that, you're probably buying, taps and dies and all this stuff. And I thought, it doesn't have to just be, used for making a pen. So I used the 10 by 1, 10, basically what I use for the section, and just put some threads in this and made it a 2-piece. Now, I think I mentioned it last week. God, I can't talk today. I mentioned it last, and I'm not sick or anything. It's weird. I mentioned it last week that, I don't totally love, this isn't like the ultimate design, the shaping of this. But this was the first attempt. And I think it looks cool. It's just, I would have rather had a little bit more flow between these two pieces, but I did them separately, right? I turned this piece separate and this piece separate. And so considering that, I'm not really like super upset or anything about this, but when you look at it, your eye just kind of wants this to be a little bit smoother. So I decided to try something different. And this time I did, so work holding was a little bit different on both of these. On this one, I decided to go for, and I was kind of mentioning this, you can use the universal mandrel system. So I put an insert in the blank and then use the universal mandrel to hold it. And then what we get is you can use the little decorative loops from stainless bottle stoppers. These things are awesome. I think I'm pretty sure that I've used these on pretty much every ornament that I've made. Now, I don't want the only ones that I had were the stainless steel ones, but they make brass ones that will go with this ornament better. And I actually have those on the way. They should be here probably tomorrow or Monday. So I'm going to switch that out. But on this one, what I did was I tapped the threads in both the pieces first before I turned them, and then I actually screwed in this piece into the other part of the blank, and then put it between, pulled the tailstock up, and I actually turned this entire piece all at the same time, which I think you guys probably will all agree that this is much better. It looks like it's contiguous or whatever. It looks like it was meant to be there, where this kind of looks like I kind of added it later. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that. So both of these guys are going to be up for grabs in the auctions. I'm going to be sending these out. The only thing is I'm waiting for the brass topper thing. Other than that, these would be ready to send down to Turner's warehouse. So just remember the ornament challenge. If you're planning to do it, you need to make sure that you get your ornament done, get it shipped, and actually they need it in their hands, not like postmarked by the 20th. They need to actually physically have your ornaments by November 20th, or else they're not going to get entered. And the reason for that is not because they want to cut off a date. It's because they have 6 days to get all the pictures, have the judges come in. There's a lot of work that has to be done between that 20th and the 26th when the auctions start. And so it's not because they're just trying to do a cutoff date or be mean, if they don't have it in their hands. It's just they need to have all these things physically so that they can actually process everything, get the auctions set up, get the winners chosen during that week. So make sure, if you can get it done early, that'll help them out down at Turner's warehouse even more, so that they're not just scrambling on the 20th trying to get all these ornaments, the pictures taken and all that stuff. The cool thing is they've got like over 100 already in. So again, November 20th, make sure. So you're kind of, we're kind of running up on the end of the, you probably want to get your ornament shipped probably like next week sometime, just to make sure everything's good to go. Give them a little buffer and you don't have to worry about it not getting entered for some reason. And don't forget, you need to go to turnerswarehouse.com. I'm actually going to pull up get you guys a link. You need to go and print out one of their entry forms. Let's see here, Turner's Warehouse. I pulled this up earlier. So there's a little printout. You need to, they need to know whose ornament the thing is, or whose ornament it is. But the other thing is you also need to tell them when or which category you're going to be entering in, because there's about, let's see, there's 6 different categories that you could enter into. So make sure to fill that out and send it with your ornament. and everything should be pretty cool. So turning Christmas ornaments, nice. Yeah, the brass will look a lot better. The thing is, I think I've used brass. Like, I have. It's funny because stainless bottle stoppers. I work with them, and they send, like, new ideas, new concept ideas, and things like that for me to test. And they constantly just send me. I'm not really sponsored by them or anything. They just send me stuff because I turn stuff and talk about their stuff. So they send me hardware all the time. Like I have like one of everything, and I don't really, it's not like I don't do a whole lot with the stuff. Like I don't sell stoppers and things. A lot of times I'm just kind of switching out hardware and whatever fits, but I don't give them away. I don't know. I don't really do a whole lot with the things that I make out of those pieces. So I have all their hardware, but the one thing that I don't have is the brass, decorative loops, because those I think pretty much every year go on the Christmas ornament that I make for Turner's Warehouse. So, and they're actually sending, those guys are awesome. That's why I like supporting them also. They're, and Niles is fine too, because Carl's taken that over, and Carl and Robin obviously are awesome people, but it's tough for me because I've already had a working relationship with stainless bottle stoppers. And so, a lot of people are like, why don't you ever talk about Ruth Niles? And I'm like, well, it's not that I don't like them or anything like that, but I've had a relationship, and I deal with like prototype stuff, like kind of like insider information with them. And so I kind of decided to stay neutral, there's kind of a conflict of interest with me working with Ruth Niles also, or doing stuff where they're sending me things that are maybe new. So I just said, look, I just want to stay neutral. And like I said, I've been working with stainless for like years. So that's why I work with them. But the Ruth Niles products are fine too. There's nothing wrong with them. They're all kind of they're all kind of the same thing. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys some info on that. All right, so I think it's time to, I don't think I have any other announcements, or is there anything else going on? What are you guys up to in your shops? Let me know. Actually, one other thing, how many of you guys have made or are going to be making an ornament? That'll be kind of interesting to see. I know quite a few people are. All right, so let's switch over to the overhead cam. I kind of want to, so I'm going to put up let's see here, image. I'm going to try to add this on the fly here. There we go. I'm going to keep this up on the screen, kind of small, maybe like right over the thing. So that way you guys can kind of see what we're working with here. All right, so again, I'm going to be using the Gatling mold. If you guys want the semi-translucent version of this, Turner's Warehouse has these in stock right now. I still have some of the red ones on my website, like actually in stock. So if you don't care about the translucent one and you want a red one, I actually have 3 of them in inventory right now. So you can order that on my website. But if you want the translucent one, which really I think is better, kind of, depending on what you're doing. If you are never going to do this, then it doesn't matter. But what's cool about this with the translucent, and I didn't even think about this when I first made these, the reason I have red ones, the only reason they're red, is because the translucent ones, getting a picture of these was really difficult. The pictures look terrible. So I'm like, well, I'm going to add red and it'll look better. So that's the only reason I did that. But what am I doing? I wanted to show you guys. So what you can do is I have this pretty bright light. And what happens is if you put the light behind it, when you're pouring, if you need to do if you're trying to do sections where you're like, okay, I'm going to pour a third blue, a third red, and a third purple, or whatever it may be. If you need to have very specific amounts, what you can do is you can measure. So one thing you have to do is you're going to have to figure out that this hole should be 6 inches. Oh, let's get that out of the camera. But just to make sure, what I recommend you do is just grab something just to make sure you know what the inside measurement is. It should be 6 inches, but you know, just get an idea of where the bottom actually is, because there's going to be some room. You can't measure from the actual bottom of the mold because there's some room, you know, with just silicone where the tubes stop here. So mark on the bottom of your mold where the bottom is, where you're starting, and then you can measure, you know, and divide however you need to do. If you need like an inch of, you know, whatever on the bottom, then measure there. And what you can do is you put that light, you know, behind it when you're pouring, and you can, it's not perfect, it's not transparent, but you can see, you know, the resin going in there. So just do it kind of slowly, and what you're going to do is you'll have to, you know, there's 7 of these holes, and the middle one's a little bit tough. You're going to have to do that one last and just, you know, look from the top and just, you know, kind of estimate it based on how much is in the other ones. But you'll be able to see the front, you know, if you put the light behind it here, you'll be able to see, you know, that resin filling up, and you can nail, you know, certain marks. So like I said, Turner's Warehouse has these, the translucent, whatever, the white ones in stock right now. If you need to get a Gatling mold, if you want to get one of these silicone molds, they're pretty cool. Another person that sells molds that I just want to mention is Olive Frogs. So Nikki, you guys probably know Nikki. Some of you guys might. So I'm gonna drop a link to her Etsy shop. She's making semi-translucent molds as well, and she's got some really killer molds actually. She's been doing a bunch of different types of things, and they're a little bit different than mine. But I just want to give you guys some more options if you do need molds. And then of course there's the P-Town Subby molds, the blue ones, and they work just fine as well. But all these molds are going to be kind of, you know, there's like different sizes and all that stuff. I wanted a little bit longer, and I just couldn't find anybody else making molds the way that I wanted. I wanted the 7 holes, and I wanted them to be a little bit longer. So mine are, you know, your pourable area is about 6 inches. And then you got the 8.5 with these guys. So if you want to do the longer ones, you can get the P-Town. Olive Frogs also sells the taller ones. So there's lots of different options out there. They all work fine. Just wanted to kind of mention that. But if you want to get the translucent silicone Gatling mold, Turner's has them right now. And then I'm going to be switching over mine eventually once I run out of the red ones. And the red ones work fine too. They're the same exact mold. It's just, you just don't get that see-through ability. But if you're not going to be making blanks like that, then it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's get started here. So first things first, like I said, we got like 4 colors we're going to shoot for on this thing. We've got orange. Let's see here. I don't know what's going on. This YouTube thing sometimes gets crazy. Dances with aardvarks. I love that. Just sent your nice. Let's see here. Oh, Happy Fun Cup ornament. That would be killer. That is a really good idea. I like it. Let's see here. All right, so we got orange, we got blue, like kind of a darkish, vibrant. Now, I'm a little bit bummed. Smooth On, that's a resin company brand. I don't particularly love that company. I don't want to talk negative, but I haven't had excellent interactions with them in the past. They have decent products and all that stuff, and they have some different products than like Alumilite, because that's who I usually work with. But I've had a great relationship with Alumilite, and I love their products. Smooth On has some pretty good ones. I don't think that they're particularly better or anything like that than Alumilites. But they do have a blue fluorescent dye. They have a few different fluorescents that blue would have been perfect for the darker one. So I'm a little bit bummed that I don't have that. I do have their purple. They have a fluorescent purple that I use for certain things, and that thing's awesome. But we don't need that today, so. All right, so it looks like I'm thinking that I'm pulling out some Divine Pigments. I think we're going to go for solid colors today. All right, we could go for micas, and that would be fine. But, you know, to really copy this fish, I really think that solid colors are kind of the way to go. And so for that that teal color, I mean, it's all about conch aqua. All right, we got that nailed. That when I looked at that picture, I'm like, oh, there's conch aqua. The orange, I think that the tiger orange would work pretty well. We are going to do a little bit of an experiment here, though, because I have 3 different ones. All right, so I've got fluorescent orange from Alumilite. The only issue with this is it can be very translucent. No matter how much you put in there, it's going to be kind of see-through. And considering orange is the most prevalent color, these are going to end up being fairly translucent blanks, I think. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if I really want to use the fluorescent orange for this. And then Maker's Select, so Turner's Warehouse, they have some dyes too, and I don't really use a lot of them because I've already kind of established certain things and I just don't think about them, but they have an orange. And so, like I said, we all kind of, most of us know what the fluorescent orange is going to look like, I think. I definitely do, so I'm not going to mess around with that. What I want to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of each one of these to some resin, and I want to look at the different colors of these. They may be pretty much the same, I don't know. But I want to look at that and just choose the one that I think is the best for that. So we got one of these is going to work for orange. And then we have, I think, Abyss Blue. The only issue is Abyss Blue is a little bit dark. This is why I was saying I know of a fluorescent blue that would have been better. Abyss might work. We might have to do a little playing around with this too. I think Lagoon Blue is going to be a little bit on the lighter side. Let's see, Maker Select probably has a blue too. I didn't think about that. They do. See what I mean? I don't even, ooh, that, I think that's where it's at right there, guys. I think we're gonna go with Maker Select Blue. Let's give that, we'll do a little test with those. And then for that lighter blue, let's see, I need to pull up the picture real quick here. Did I already close I did. Close the main one, let's see here. I got to pull up a bigger picture. So there's kind of a lighter blue up on by his head, on the fin by his head. I'm thinking this Lagoon Blue is probably the way to go for that. That's pretty close. There's also Powder Blue. That could work as well. I don't know. We could even mix both of them together, like a 1-to-1, and kind of get right in the middle of both of them. So there's a lot of things you can do. I don't think that's necessary, and I think that just adds complication to your casting. So let's pick. I'm going to go for the lighter one. It may not be exactly the right match, but I like the contrast. Like having more contrast, having a lighter color. I think it'll, in the end, possibly look a little bit better. I don't know. We'll have to kind of see, though. So we got our colors. Let's do a little bit of playing around. I don't have a neon blue. Fluorescent. There's a fluorescent blue. That's literally what the Smooth On calls it. Fluorescent. Yeah, we're just gonna go with pigments today, because that the other reason is I don't do that a lot. Frankly, I can't think of. Well, I might have a few blanks where I've done that. I don't know. Part of the problem is you get bleed, and we might get some color bleed in these. I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I kind of stay away from. Just using dyes. However, you don't have to. Now I've done that like on my normal pours where I'm just, pouring it into a brick. That's the thing, is I just haven't really experimented with solid dyes. That's it on a blank too much. Aside from, like, I have a Tequila Sunrise blank that is technically just dye, but it's not like we're color swirling stuff. So, and Turner's Warehouse has these guys in stock, but it's just basically two fluorescent colors poured together. So it's not, it doesn't fit the problem that you would have with the, you know, with bleeding. And as long as you wait, it's fine. It's just, it's one of those things that before I start making a lot of blanks, I like to practice. So this will give us some pretty good practice, I think, you know. So I'm going to put the fluorescent orange away. I don't want to use that because I know that it's going to be kind of translucent. So let's, we already know what the powder blue looks like. We got two colors down. Let's do a couple little quick experiments. That's why it's good to have these little condiment cups for experiments. And what I'm going to do is let's see, we only need about maybe, I don't know, like 20 grams for each one of these. You don't even need that much necessarily. This is typically how I do my like experiments or whatever, like samples. I got to be honest. Mark, did you guys see Mark Koster's shop tour that Chad did? He had some pretty cool stuff. I'm thinking about making. He had like, I don't exactly know what they were, but they were just like little donut type looking things. And I'm thinking that I'm gonna make like a mold. But it was nice because he had all his on like just like on a little ring, like on a chain type thing. And so he had all these samples. Now I don't know how he marked or identified them all. But I'm thinking about coming up with something where I'm gonna make a mold for my samples, because these things get a little bit kind of out of control and it's more resin than you really probably need. I don't know. It was a pretty cool idea that Mark had, I thought. So let me get a little mixing cup, 20, 40, 60, 80. All right, so I just got a little cup on the scale there. I'm gonna go for 40 grams of part A. I'm gonna mix it all up at once. And then just dump out 20 grams in each one of these guys. And then we'll see what these things look like. And then because I'm gonna have, we're gonna actually have these things cast. Then what I can do is I can mark on the bottom what each one is. And then I don't have to do this again. So you gotta waste a little resin up front. Then you don't have to worry about it later on, though. You just pull it out and say, yeah, that ought to work. The other nice thing is, holding a bottle up of dye, that's not really totally going to tell you what the resin's going to look like, exactly, like fully cured. So it's nice to have samples so that you can actually see, okay, this is what it actually looks like cured in that specific resin. All right, let me see here. I'm going to look at where's the best place to get molds from? Turner's Warehouse has pretty much any kind of mold you'd ever need. Trying to think if there's any others. I mean, they pretty much sell all the ones that I that I use, basically. And you can make your own. It depends on what type of mold you're talking about. If you're looking for like one of the vertical pouring mold type things, I mean, Turner's Warehouse has pretty much all of them that most people are using. The only other one is like I said, Olive Frogs. Nikki's, which I don't know, I might even talk to Chad about that. They might want to add those to their lineup. I don't know if Nikki's doing wholesale or not, but Nikki's got hers on her site, on her Etsy, and I put a link up, just kind of, rewind, go back a little bit in the chat, so you can see the link to her Etsy shop. All right, so we got 20, and it's probably easier to mark these things before you pour them, but I'll just go back afterwards. All right. So we got our 4 colors, our 4 things. So let's, and I'm actually going to put a specific amount in here. I want to put 3%. So that's going to be 0.3, I believe. Let's see here. Yeah. Don't worry about the number. I'm going to put 0.3 grams of dye in each one of these things. Now, with these pigments, the pigment-based ones versus like the Alumilite dyes, the difference between a pigment and a dye, pigments are larger chunks of color. That's why they become opaque. Dyes are very fine particles of color, you know, in some sort of a vehicle. So when that's kind of the difference. I mean, it you know, they all kind of seem like dyes, but there is an actual difference between pigments and dyes technically. And I might even be not 100% correct on all that, but what the heck? Thing not open? Nope. Helps to open the bottle first. Okay. Now, so this first one's going to be Abyss. Yeah, I really should have marked these first. Okay, Abyss. Maker select. Okay. Now we won't get them mixed up. Make sure you pour the right things in the right thing. Let's see here. Okay, so 0.3 grams is what I'm shooting for. There we go, 0.3. Yeah, that might, well, I don't know. Might be a little dark. What is this one? Maker select blue. I'm even going to give this a little bit of a stir. Kind of thick. And so with those larger chunks of color, if you're using a pigment-based, you know, colorant, let's call it, you are going to want to shake it up or, you know, stir it, something, because the pigment will settle. Yeah. I think Maker Select, I think they're going to be making like the squeeze bottle style. I kind of got early editions of this stuff, so I don't love these jars, these bottles without a squeeze thing. Makes it kind of a pain, but like I said, I think that they're going to be getting those things in. All right, we got 3.3 grams of that. Okay, we got the Maker Select orange. Doesn't really seem to do a whole lot. Yeah, I'm gonna stir it up also. Come on. Stuff's kind of thick. Come on. There we go. We got 0.3. Whew. Kind of hard to sneak up on it when it's thicker. Okay, so we got the Maker Select, and then we got our Tiger Orange from Divine. Once they put the Maker Select stuff in bottles like this, it'll act the same. Okay, so let's mix these guys up and see what we got. That's definitely like the right color, but dang, is that super transparent. That's too dark, I think. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at the color here. Pull up the photo. Abyss, I think, could work. This stuff is just, I mean, it's pretty much see-through. I think they're still working on some of the colors here, but let's I'm gonna add a little bit more. And if it's totally transparent, if you're pigment-based dye or whatever, pigment-based colorant, if it's like super transparent, then it might need to be mixed up better. Let's add. I'm gonna double it down. And just see. This might actually be about the same type of thing as that other, the smooth on one that I was talking about. A lot of the like fluorescent dyes, pigments, whatever, tend to be on the transparent, translucent side. Yeah, so that's pretty, I mean, that's like transparent. So we're gonna have to toss that out because that's just not gonna work. I think Abyss will work. It is a little bit on the darker side of things, but I do think it'll work all right. I think it'll be a decent representation of what's in that picture. And then we got, this is the Maker Select Orange, which I think that's probably a pretty good match right there. Very bright. I think that the Tiger Orange is a little bit more on like the red. Yeah. It would work fine too. But I think that the Maker Select is a little bit, it's like more of like just orange. It's got a little less red in it. So I think we're going to go with that one for the orange. The Maker Select Blue is a great color, but like, I mean, it's like transparent. Like it's like no matter how much you put in here, it's never gonna. That's the Abyss. It's really. So I think they might be switching this one up. I might need a new one. We'll revisit this and see if there's any changes. I might have got a dud for some reason, or maybe it's all settled out. I've had them for a while, but I mean that's like totally transparent. A good color though. It's just it's not going to work if you're making something that you don't want to be transparent. All right, so what do we got here? Birthday? Nice, that's cool. Getting yelled at. You can watch the replay, man. It's cool. Oh yeah, Northside. Yeah, Jake's got some good ones. Sorry, I didn't think of that. He's got, and I got a few of his too. So if you want, and these are just silicone. So like that's the thing is you say who has good molds? Well, what kind of mold do you want? So Jake's got singles. If you're doing square pen blanks, he's got a brick one. He's got some big ones that are awesome. Let's see here. I need to rearrange things here. He's back. He's got One of my favorites is these stopper blanks, and he's got a smaller one that'll fit in a 2.5 gallon. But so this has 14 stopper size things that you can do, and he's got like another one that's got, let's see here. He's got two different versions of this. He's got some that have pen blanks, singles, but this one's like for a brick, and then you get a couple like knife scale size things or handles, and then some pen blanks. So he's got all kinds of different ones, and he makes really good molds. There's lots of good mold makers out there. Like I said, the main question is, what do you want? What type of mold do you want? And what are you making? And then Maker Select also sells they've got HDPE singles. They've also got bricks and all that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of different things. So that's Turner's Warehouse. And then if you want, you can just buy your own HDPE and make bricks out of the HDPE if you have, you know, the means to do that. All right, so these are good to go. Should have saved that. It's good to know and, you know, really kind of have a decent amount of different types of dyes. I know that it is, you know, this stuff gets expensive pretty quick, but it depends on what you're doing, you know. And you don't need to have like every single color of everything on hand at all times. But if you're going to be making, if you have a very specific project, you might want to, you know, get online, go and check out, you know, whether it's mica powders or these dyes or whatever. Get online and kind of check out a few different things. Maybe buy a couple different versions of colors. That way, you know, when it comes down to making the blanks that you want, you've got options and you can look at a few different things. All right, so we're doing Maker Select Orange, we're doing the Powder Blue, we're doing Abyss Blue, and we're going to do Conch Aqua. Okay? So it's good to have these little samples and try things out. That way you can kind of, you're not just like, well, that ought to be close, you know. And in some cases, you know, like some of these might just end up being kind of close in the end after you've tried them, but there's definitely some better ones, better options that we've found after, you know, trying them out. What are they doing over there? Good Lord. We now have neighbors, sort of, and they like to make noise. I'm pretty sure I could just live like in the middle of nowhere. On an island. Okay. So we got our stuff here. That's a pretty good color. I like that orange. All right, now looking at the picture, let's pull up that thing again. Nope. Yep, there we go. Let me stop real quick and see what's going on in the chat. I've been kind of paying attention to what's going on. Did anybody drop a link to, yeah, okay, Northside. So Jake is Northside Custom Crafts. And if you are into this kind of casting stuff, if you don't know about Jake, you definitely want to go and check out his channel too. I'm pulling up a link right now to that. So check out his channel. He actually does a live stream right before me on Saturdays. Not right before, but Saturday mornings. And they're always making, you know, hybrid stuff and doing cool casting things. He's got a lot of really good videos on his channel as well. So check it out. Check it out. Yeah, you can add white to counter the transparency. The problem is if you add white, it's also going to lighten the color and change it. So, you know, it's one of those tough things. You gotta balance things out, and it makes it a little bit harder. most of the divine pigments are pretty good. Even this abyss blue can be a little bit transparent sometimes. Like there's a couple of colors that they have. Some of the greens can be, and then other ones, like they're just super opaque. So it's almost like they're using different types of pigments or something. I don't know. I'm not I don't know enough about the pigment industry per se. But there are different types of pigments. It may come down to how much pigment they're putting in it, how much the pigment costs. I don't know, because I do think that there are some different, like the raw materials that go into these things can have differences to them. Like I said, you're pretty much safe on most of the divine pigments. Most of the Maker Select colors are also fine. That blue, I think I've talked to Chet. I did this a year or two ago where he sent those out, and I was kind of playing with them. And there was a couple of colors. Do I have them? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have them all. I had samples somewhere. I've got all kinds of samples, but I'm pretty sure that blue, I think the purple might be a little bit weird. I think those were the two that I was like, I don't know about these two, but the rest of them were, like basically exactly the same thing as the divine pigments, but they're slightly different colors. That's the beauty of this stuff is, hopefully if people come out with a new product, they're not just like, oh, well, it's the same exact, hue or color as somebody else's stuff. And the Maker Select ones are kind of unique. They're a little bit different. The other thing that's nice about that is having, some different things like that. If you're mixing colors, if you're trying to get a very specific color, sometimes it's better to start, like, I'm trying to think, if I was trying to make some sort of like a specific red or something like that, sometimes it's better to have like a more of an orange color than that kind of reddish orange to start out with to mix. And so if you're making custom dye recipes, it's nice to have different, options out there, let's say. Your favorite saltwater fish? What kind of fish is that? I don't even know. I've never seen one of them before. I don't use alcohol inks. They can, they're kind of useless. They're very diluted. It's mostly just alcohol. And one of the other things is I don't really like putting alcohol in my resin. It's probably not going to do anything to it, but you see a lot of people making like coasters and like art pieces where they're just, all you're doing is laying down resin, dropping some stuff in it, some colors, and when it's cured, you take it out of the mold and it is what it is. You don't need to do machining or anything else to it. Maybe polish it a little bit, but I mean, you're not doing any work to the thing. In those cases, who cares? It doesn't really matter. But if you're going to turn something, I recommend staying clear of adding a bunch of alcohol or other, things to your resin, because it can make it more brittle. It could make it more, who knows? It can change the characteristics of the resin itself, which probably isn't going to have an effect on things, but I stay away from that personally because I sell pen blanks. I'm not going to introduce stuff to it that might make them more brittle or problematic in some way. So I just don't do it. The other thing is, like I said, alcohol ink is so diluted that it doesn't do much to it. It's definitely going to be transparent. You can add some white to it and all that, but you may as well, if you just want color, you're better off buying the Alumilite. They're translucent. They're dyes basically. You can make alcohol ink out of this. So just dump alcohol in a jar. I actually have some that I've pre-made that are using Alumilite dyes. So you just, add alcohol and then drop a few drops of the dyes. These are so concentrated, so the opposite of diluted, that, like one drop of this in like half a bottle of alcohol is going to be probably more dye or more concentrated than the alcohol ink, because like I said, it's so diluted. The other issue you have with alcohol inks is many of them will like fade very easily. And Steve McDonald did a video on that. He did some experiments where he made these, like, I think he made coasters or something like that. And he did some experiments with different alcohol inks, and like within like a month or something like that, I want to say, especially with exposure to sunlight, like literally the color was just gone completely. So I just don't mess with those things. You're better off going with like the Alumilite dyes have worked excellent for many, many years for me. And you can add white to those to get opaque colors, but being so much more concentrated, it works better to add just the white, the opaque behind it, because you can get a lot more color in it. If you're trying to do that with alcohol inks, it's not going to be very bright or vibrant, let's say. That was a really long explanation, but I don't usually use alcohol inks for most things. The one thing that I will say though, and the reason that I made my own alcohol inks, is because some of these Alumilite dyes, so like purple, there's standard blue, even green, they're so dark that you, like, one drop in a pretty big bucket of resin is still not going to be light enough or transparent enough. You know, like in like a perfect example is, I don't have an example of a, well, actually, I do have an example, I think. Do I? I don't have an example, I don't think. But so I do have an example. If you wanted to make a pink, so for like hybrid blanks, if you're trying to get pink, you're not going to get it. There's no way to get it with like red. So the Alumilite dyes don't have a pink, right? So that's one, I do use alcohol inks to get pink in something like this, because there's just no other way to do it. Blues, again, can be very difficult. Even if you have a large amount of resin, just adding one drop, it's going to be, it's difficult to get it like the perfect, you know, color, transparency and all that kind of stuff, as well as like the hue, the color of the blue. So that's where, you know, these alcohol inks are a little bit better, where they're diluted so much, and you can get very specific colors, like color, you know, what is the word? Hue, I guess, is sort of the word. That's where those things really come in. There's a lot more options, and it's going to leave it transparent. You're not going to have to worry about that. Now for the red, yellow, orange, the ocean blue is not very dark. Is there any other? The fluorescents are not very dark. Did I say red? Those ones are all going to be very transparent with the Alumilite dyes, so you don't have to worry about that. And it almost doesn't matter how much. Like, the difference is, it doesn't matter how much of this in many of these colors with the alcohol inks. You could dump the whole bottle in, and it's still not going to get opaque. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Yeah, no, I don't, like I said, I don't use alcohol ink at all. So I don't, oh, I think that question was already up there. Okay, so let's quit talking about alcohol inks. I don't care about that. I don't use them for pen blanks. I don't think that, I just don't see the point. Again, I think for the price also, because like one of these bottles is so concentrated, it'll go way farther than alcohol inks. So it's also kind of a money thing. Like, what's the point? Okay, so we need to pull out our book. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit talkative today. Pulling out the book, we're going to go for the overhead view. So what we were going to do is look at this picture. Orange is going to be the most prevalent. And if you look at the fish, it's much, so like from the middle of the fish to the end, the tail end, there's a lot of orange, and it gets like even more orange as it goes to the back, where the front of the fish, there's not a whole lot of orange. So that's something that we could kind of incorporate into these blanks, where whether it's the beginning, which would probably be easier, pour quite a bit more orange at the beginning, and then we have a little bit of blue, you know, like the abyss, the darker blue, on the back tail and the top tail, and like the bottom fin. We can add a little bit of accent blue in there, then orange and teal with a little bit of accent blue. And then as we get to the top, we have like the lighter blues. So we can kind of, depending on how you want this to go, you could even just do it where, you know, you look at the picture and you're like, okay, there's 4 colors, just split the total amount by 4 and just mix it all up. That would work fine too. But, you know, you can adjust the amount of resin or even where you're pouring it to kind of get a little bit of a different look. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to have more orange because we're just going to flat out need to have more orange resin. So I think that that's probably going to be like a good 60% of this blank is going to be orange. All right, so we can start there, 60%. This mold, I mix up 400 grams. That's a little extra, but then I just pour it into the Happy Fun cup. I just like to make sure that I have enough. I'd rather be over than under and then have something to pour the excess into. If you're going for dead on, pretty perfect, 380 grams for these molds is plenty. That should, for most things, work fine. You just may not be able to kind of like top it off or overflow it, but it's going to be plenty of resin. Like I said, I just go for 400. That way I don't have to worry about it and I have a little extra. So let's see here. We're doing, what day is this? The 4th? Good Lord. 11/4. We're doing, so did we say what kind of fish that was? Mandarin goby. Huh. That's cool. We're doing I'm just calling this Cooper's Challenge. Cooper's Challenge. Okay, so we're going to go for, and I'll probably, kind of similar to how we did the other ones, I'll probably do like a pre-sale of these. Some people missed out on the alien desert blanks and wanted me to make more. I got to be honest, guys, those things were so difficult to make. It would take me 30 minutes just to get things ready to pour those things. So those were a very limited thing. This one's not going to be that difficult, so we'll see. These may end up going into inventory depending on how they turn out. I may add them to my website, but what I'm going to do is, you know, we'll probably turn one next week and then see, you know, what does it look like. But I'll probably do like a pre-sale kind of thing and just, you know, if you want some, I'll basically for some period of time make as many blanks as orders come in and then stop it at some point after that. So we'll probably do the same type of thing. I think these will be pretty cool. I hope so anyway. So today we're just going to make one batch. That's all we really need to do today. I don't want to make things more difficult by doing like 2 different styles. You know, I was thinking about maybe doing that just to get a little bit more content, you know, for today so you could see a little bit more stuff. But I don't, we just don't need to do that, you know. So we're just going to do this. It should be a pretty simple pour. So 400 grams is the total amount. And I'm using Alumilite Clear Slow. So that's going to be a 1-to-1 mix ratio. So 200 times 2. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to do 60% is going to be, I'm going to go for the overhead view. So you can kind of, I don't know if you can really see exactly what's going on, but oh, the fish picture is still there. I forgot about that. So I'm just breaking it down. 60% is going to be 240 grams total of resin that I need for the orange. And let's see here. The blue, the next one is going to be the teal. That's probably going to be about 30%. The darker blue anyway. And then like, we'll just do, let me look at this thing. No, not blue. Teal. Conch is the 30%. We might need to kind of slightly adjust these a little bit. 10%. Oh, no, that's fine. 10 and 10. Does that work? 40. That doesn't work. Okay, so we're going to switch this up a little bit. Sometimes you got to kind of play with these numbers. We're going to do 50% is going to be orange. So that's 200 grams. And 80, 90, 100. There we go. That should work a little bit better. Yeah, that should work. And then 40 grams, and then so 30% is 120, 10% is 40. Let me just make sure all these numbers, 40, 80, yeah. Okay, so we got Abyss Blue. You know what I'm going to do? We're going to go for... We're actually... The light blue is like very small amount, and it's going to be kind of at the top of the blank. We're actually going to switch this up. We're going to go for 15% is the Abyss Blue, which is 60 grams of resin. And then 5%, which is going to be 20 grams, I think. 0.05 times. Yeah. Okay, so I've totally made a massacre of this thing, but we got it on video, right? So we're going to go with powder blue. Okay, so how much do we need here? I'm going to go for, I'm not even going to tell you percentages. I have a system of how I calculate percentages and things, so I'm just going to tell you the amount of grams of dye that I'm putting in each one of these. All right, so we're going to go with 3 grams of dye on the orange, 1.8 grams of dye on the Conch Aqua, 1 gram on the Abyss, and 0.5 grams on the powder. Okay. So just to go through these again, we're gonna split this. We're gonna have 200 grams of resin for the orange with 3 grams of dye in it. 120 grams of resin for the Conch Aqua, 1.8 grams of dye. 60 grams of resin for the Abyss Blue, the darker one, 1 gram of dye, and then 20 grams of resin for the powder blue, and then half a gram. Some of those were slightly arbitrary, some of them not. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to pour, so with our notes, we're going to pour orange first, and we're going to pour it heavy. We're gonna kind of fill the bottom because there's a lot of orange in the tail of that fish, on the back end of the fish. It's very orange. So we're gonna do kind of a heavy pour of orange first. Then we're gonna pour a little kind of a zip, you know, like a kind of a small pour of the Abyss, the darker blue, because that's the accent that you see on the tail. Then we're going to switch to orange and conch. We're just going to kind of go back and forth for like the body of the fish, and then probably add in a little bit of the Abyss. We don't have a whole lot of the Abyss, so we have to kind of... This is where things can get kind of technical. It's much easier just to say, I got 4 colors, split it into 4, and then just dump equal amounts every time. That's the easiest way to do something like this. But if you're trying to do things a little bit, you know, where it's more, you know, of something in one area, then you have to kind of split it up and make it a little bit more difficult to, you know, like steps on the pour. Then let's see here, what else we got? Orange, conch, Abyss, and then we're gonna go for orange, conch, and then powder blue. Okay, so that might have been super confusing, but we're gonna pour quite a bit of orange, then we're gonna pour a small swirl of Abyss, then we're gonna go orange, conch, and Abyss, like kind of going back and forth with smaller pours. Then we're going to go orange, conch, powder to top it off. And Yeah, I think that should work. Okay, so we got that. And, you know, this is one of those things, if I really wanted to divide the blank, I could put lines on how much orange I wanted to put in if I wanted it to be solid. I don't really want it solid totally. I just want to pour a good amount the first time. So I don't need to do that on this blank. But like I said, if you really wanted to segregate it, these translucent molds really do come in handy. You can mark it up and then put that, like I said, backlight it with and you got to use a pretty strong light. You're going to want something kind of bright. But then you can kind of, you know, see how much you're pouring of each color. I don't know if there's one that, I don't know if there's any silicone that's like transparent, like very transparent. These are pretty translucent, but you do need a pretty bright light behind you to get that to work, you know. All right, so let's get a new cup here, maybe. There we go. Oh, come on. What the heck? There we go. Finally. All right, let's see here. Yeah, the picture, that's why I was like, okay, let's do it. We can do that. I ain't afraid. And in the end, so, you know, I'm kind of trying to engineer this blank a little bit. In the end, who knows? You know, you cannot, it's liquid. It's very difficult to get. That's what I always tell people, especially like beginners. The hardest part of resin casting is trying, you know, like you have something in mind. You have something literally pictured in your brain, and then trying to make that a reality with resin oftentimes can be difficult. If all you're doing is pouring liquids, you know, you got different colors and you're just pouring them together, it's very difficult to get exactly what you want in your head to come out in a blank, you know. So don't feel bad. It just needs to be representative of the idea. So try not to set your hopes too high. Just realize that's it's difficult to get very specific results with resins. So, you know, set those expectations in a place where, you know, it's a little bit more realistic. Let's see here. So I'm just going to leave the orange in the mixing cup because it's a pretty decent amount. 120 I'm going to put in there, and then we got 60 and 20. I think I can do this, maybe. All right, so let's first mix this up. Ah, David made it. How's it going? Who's ready for Thanksgiving? It's coming up pretty quick. Now the other thing, two things that I didn't mention is when am I going to pour this, and like, you know, your temperature and the mixing stick thing. So I'm going to use my normal mixing stick, and I have it kind of angled and bent and whatever. I don't know. I think that does help a little bit. I don't know. It's really difficult to figure out, like I'd have to do a lot of testing to figure out exactly what effect different sticks have on your resin. I do think that it kind of helps to have a little bit of a crook at the bottom. I'm not 100% sure that you need to do all this bending, but what I do is I twist it while I'm going up, so you get pretty good, you know, kind of swirling. What I found with just a straight stick is you get more of kind of a pull action if you just kind of go in and just have a straight stick that you're kind of pulling up. It just kind of it swirls it a little bit if you are moving it around in a circle, but it's kind of more of like an upward swirl pattern where, like I said, I think it's more that you have a crook at the bottom, probably. That's, I think, the most important part of this, but having a little bit of, something kind of sticking out when you're swirling it around, it really gives you a little bit more of that kind of around the blank swirl. And then, you don't even have to use a stick. You can just dump it and it's still going to do stuff. It just may not really be very mixed up. And in some cases, like there's some of my blanks that I make, I specifically don't want, mix, like a stir stick action. All right, so I need 120 grams in here. This is going to be the Conch Aqua. Okay. In fact, while it's sitting there, I'm going to get my Conch Aqua ready. I'm going to add that. You got to work on Thanksgiving. That's no fun. Nice. Do some Thanksgiving pours. I like that. 1.8 grams. And with these dyes, or sorry, I should say pigments, you may not, like once you get it opaque, like you don't need to add more. It's not going to change anything about the thing. So in some of these cases, I may not have even needed like 3%. 1% might have been plenty. So, you can kind of play around with that. I just picked a number and went with it. But you could add, like 1% and see what it looks like on the stick and see if that's opaque enough. I probably should have done that because otherwise you're just kind of wasting dye or, wasting pigment. And then we need 60 in here. I hope this is big enough. I think it is. Close. 61. Close enough. This is going to be the Abyss. We're going to add 1 gram of that. There is an upper limit to how much pigment or dye or whatever you can add. And that mainly goes for the liquid colorants. I don't know that there's really an upper limit on how much mica powder you can put in. Micas are not going to really affect the curing. I mean, you could add, like 1-to-1 by volume, like a bunch of sand in resin, and it's still going to cure. So mica powder, it's just a dry pigment. It's not going to do anything with the curing. The reason there's an upper limit for the liquid pigments, liquid, colorants, is because it's not just pigment that's in it. There's some sort of a vehicle, is what they would call it. It's something that you mix. Let's see. This one's Abyss Blue. Hold on. Let me finish measuring these things out. We need 20 in here. There's some sort of a vehicle that that makes it liquid, basically. And that's the problem, is eventually you're going to get to the point where you're adding too much of whatever that liquid stuff is that's making it a liquid pigment. And that's going to react and cause curing issues with your resin. And then we're doing 0.5 gram of this blue. Do we get it? No. There we go. Whatever. 0.6. Close enough. Okay. And then we got to add some orange. Yeah, I think this will do. This would have been a pretty easy one with micas as well. And I think it would look good. That was what I was thinking about maybe doing, is doing one with solid colors and one with micas. But I don't think we need to. I'd rather just focus on, keep the focus on one thing. The other problem is I don't know that I'm going to necessarily have time to turn a bunch of pen blanks and see what they all look like. So let's see, 3 grams of this orange dye stuff. I really wish I had this in a bottle. Come on. All right, 1.5. Many things going on here. Oh, come on. There we go. 3. These pigments get messy. Make sure you're keeping the lid on them, and when you're shaking them, that's always my problem. Turkey dinner. Yeah, there you go. Join us for ours. Didn't you guys already? You guys do it in October, right? Is that right? October? Yeah. All right, so the temperature that I'm going to, so again, I'm a little bit, I have more concern of bleed, color bleed, when I'm working with pigments. They tend to, they definitely bleed. It's not they tend to. They definitely bleed more than micas. So if you're kind of a beginner, I would probably recommend starting out with mica powders. You're going to get better results off the bat and have a lot more fun. These pigment, liquid pigments, the liquid dyes and pigments, they tend to bleed more, especially certain color combinations. Yellow and blue, good Lord. That is a recipe for disaster a lot of times. They just, for some reason, the other issue is yellow and blue, when you look at it, if you end up with very thin striations of both of those colors, it just looks green. And I think some of it's actually just an optical illusion. Your eyes make it look like it's green, but it's actually not. They're just too close together. So we're at 90. I think we're going to pour this at 95. I think that's going to be my target temperature. Some of these are going to be a little bit lower than the others. Like this one probably is not, we're like 87 or so. So that's also going to change things. If I had measured all these things out equally and put them in the same size cup, they would have been all kind of the same temperature. That one's at 90. So sometimes you just have to kind of base things, like when am I going to pour? I'm probably just going to pour when the orange is 95. And you're probably going to want to put that type of thing in your notes, because if you're judging it based off of this blue with the smallest amount of resin, this one's probably going to be at like 100 by the time this one hits 95. So you just have to kind of, go with whatever you think. So this one we're at like 92, 93 probably. It was 92, I don't know. I might even base it off of this one. So that's like 94, almost 95 right there. All right, so looking at my notes, I got to pour. I think I can start pouring. I think we're good enough. Yeah, we're pretty close to 95, I think, on this orange. I'm going to pour kind of a heavy pour first. All right. I kind of held it there. This is the tough part, is how much did I pour in there? I don't know. You just have to come up with some sort of a thing. So my notes are Abyss, a small amount of the Abyss blue. And then we're going to go with orange and conch. kind of back and forth with that, plus some abyss. I think the abyss is a little bit dark. But the best we had, you know? Okay, now we're getting kind of close to the top of here, so I'm going to add some orange. And let's see here. We're going to go with, I'm going to go with one more. This one's pretty high. I'm going to go for a little bit more conch in these lower ones. And then we're going to add some powder blue here. Maybe even a little bit of this abyss, since I have more of it. I don't know. You know, you got to just do the best you can. A little bit of conch. Back to the orange. Oh, I just stuck my fingers right in the resin. All right, I gotta get going here. I gotta get a stir stick in here still. Okay. So like I said, we're gonna go with my kind of standard. Where's my stir stick thing? Where the heck did my stir stick go? Is this it? I guess that's it. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully this didn't bleed too much. The tough thing is the timing, because it can get, if you wait too long, it can be too, you know, if you wait too long, it's not going to work very well. It's going to be just thick and goopy. You don't wait long enough though, then you get more color bleed. So I think we're okay. I could have maybe waited a little bit longer, especially considering there's some of these, you know, there was not that much of the powder blue. You're going to have better results probably if you can have like the same amounts of resin in the same size cup, so that everything's kind of the same temperature. And so when you say I'm going to, you know, pour at 95, they're all kind of at that same temperature. We could have gotten a little bit of bleed basically from the, you know, from any colors that were a little bit on the lower end of the temperature scale. I'm just going to top this off with some of this conch. Just make sure that we got them filled to the brim. And I over pour. You don't have to do this, but I'm going for like the full amount, you know, on this mold. And then at this point, we just pop it into the thingy. There we go. I'm excited. I think these are going to be some pretty cool looking blanks. Like I said, the biggest thing is, the only concern that I really have with these is going to be color bleed. And so that's why it's like, I'm going to call it, it's crucial to write down exactly when you poured. And the other thing about this temperature thing is, what is the ambient temperature in your shop as well? That has it's a big factor in that, because the difference is, if it's 85 degrees and I say that I poured it at 95 according to the resin, the temperature gun, the difference is at 85 degrees with the resin, with the Alumilite clear sitting out on my countertop, and even if I refrigerated it and kept it cooler, that ambient temperature being warmer is going to thin out the resin faster. All right, so, and I leave my Alumilite clear slow out, all summer. So if the warmer the resin starts at, the thinner the viscosity the resin is. All right, so even at 95, it's still thinner, I find, than 69 degrees in my shop, and then pouring at 95, the resin's thicker by the time it hits 95 than it would have been if it were 85 degrees in my shop. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you're getting into casting, just give it a try. You'll notice the difference. You'll be like, wow, that bled more. And that's the thing, is if it's the part of the thing, it's not the temperature of the resin that dictates whether it's gonna bleed or whatever. I almost think it has nothing to do with the temperature. I think it has to do with the viscosity of the resin. The temperature, though, is a more consistent measure of when the viscosity is right. So to find the right temperature, you're going to have to do some testing. But once you find a temperature that works, based on given the ambient temperature in your shop, then you can get repeatable results. So you have to do a little bit of testing and try some different things out. And one thing that also kind of has a little bit to do with this is going to be your technique a little bit. Like how are you pouring? Are you pouring in a vertical mold like I was doing just now, or are you pouring into a brick mold? Because that radically changes when I would pour. And I think in that case, the difference in that case is, even if you are doing vertical, but you're pouring into a 1.5 inch PVC pipe for like, bottle stoppers, the more room the resin, I'm pouring the Abyss. The only thing we really had enough left of is the Abyss blue. So we're pouring that into the Happy Fun cup. The rest of them are kind of, I don't think we were going to get much out of them. Anyway, the more the resin has, the more room the resin has to like move, the more it's gonna move, which means it's gonna kind of thin out a little bit and bleed a little bit more. I've been kind of blown away by how little color bleed you get pouring into a 3/4 inch, hole for doing these vertical pen blanks. And also like how low of a temperature I can pour without getting bleeding. It's much lower than if I was pouring pouring the bricks. I have to wait quite a bit more even in the winter. Otherwise it just tends to kind of spread out and thin out and bleed more. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And it's going to change like what I'm doing. So 69 degrees and 95 for this thing, that's not necessarily what your temperature, it may not work for you. Basically, you need to do some experimenting. But in general, as long as, the other big factor with this also has to do with the resin. So this is not going to just literally throw these numbers completely out the window when it comes to if you're using like liquid diamonds or you're using Amazing Clear Cast or any other resin. These numbers mean nothing at all. So you have to have exactly the same resin. But generally with the Alumilite Clear Slow, and I would say probably for just Alumilite Clear, their normal, the 5-minute version, Alumilite Clear, or the Clear Slow. Generally 95 or so, 90 to 95 is kind of the sweet spot. 90 is okay I find at cooler temperatures in my shop, doing them vertically. 90 is actually what I pour at a lot of times in the winter for many different types of blanks. Some of them I go higher though. So it's not like a set rule, even for me in my shop. It depends on what I'm doing. But for pen blanks vertically, 90 to 95 is usually going to be okay, as long as it's, you know, somewhere around room temperature. So like, you know, in the 70 degrees or so. In the summer, I have to go a little bit higher. But if you're using a different resin completely, then these numbers are just useless. But I think that if you're going to get Alumilite Clear Slow and you're, you know, trying to find your temperature range, I think, you know, trying 95 first is probably going to be a good shot, and you'll probably get some decent results. However, what I would also do is try some different numbers and try and, you know, bracket things. So like 95, that's fine. Try it at 85 and see what happens. Try it at like 105 and just kind of see what the differences are, you know. That way you'll be able to really dial in and get the best results for you. So let's see here. Some handle blanks. Nice. Yeah, and so, you know, if I was going to be pouring 1.5-inch blanks with that same exact color scheme, it would be a nightmare, because it just slams down and spreads out, and you get a ton more color bleed trying to do that. You really need to pour it kind of down the side or put a stick or something in there so that it's not like a big vertical drop is going to create, it's like splashes out, and then you have you know, twice the amount of room for it to spread out, so you get a lot more color bleed. I would have to wait much higher, probably like 105 to pour into one of these, and it's still going to bleed at the bottom a lot more. So you have to just be careful. I mean, there's lots of different things. I think the easiest thing is pouring vertically in a Gatling mold, or something like it, you know, like the 3/4-inch pen blank vertical. I think that's the easiest way to get good results. The bigger the mold, pipe-wise, and taller, the harder it is to get it to not, you know, bleed on you. All right, so I need to mark down a couple of little notes here. We poured at 95 degrees. It's about 69 in my shop. And the 95 was the orange, and then I used what I call my regular stick. So we got all of our notes. So we're gonna have to kind of see how these all turned out. Again, one thing that also can cause concern when you're pouring these things. I'm gonna switch to the overhead view. So you saw how I did my, you know, the stick. I plunged it down in, and this thing got kind of bent. So I'm using some material that's easy to bend, which makes it nice to make these things, but then it like gets screwed up all the time when you wipe it off and all that. What's going on here? Okay. So I plunge it down, and I'm kind of twisting while I pull up. Well, when you're obviously you're pulling some resin out, it's going to be on the stick, and you'll see it looks terrible on the top. After you've pulled the thing out, it looks just it's all color bleed and bleh, you know, it just looks like brown. Don't rely on what it looks like after you've pulled the stick out for like that top of the pipe. It's not probably going to look like that on the inside of the blank. It probably just got swirled up. But what ends up happening is you've pulled like a little bit of all the colors, and it just turns into mud looking on the top. So don't freak out is what I'm saying. If you use a stick, pull it out, and it's all like, that doesn't indicate that you screwed up or whatever, you know, that you got color bleed inside the blanks. This is the tough thing, is you got to wait, you know. So, you know, I'm going to wait. I would probably wait at least 4 hours on these for pen blanks. But you have to wait, and then really you don't even know. The outside of these blanks is not going to tell me what they actually look like turned down. So what I end up doing for these things when I'm making new blanks, is I turn down a little sample. I'll just pull a few of my little sample types of things here. This is the fastest and easiest way for me to get results, and because I'm trying to get consistent results, so I end up kind of wasting a lot of blanks doing tests. But to make sure that I know like what what are the results, what I do is I kind of turn down these little things. I just stick it in my collet chuck, and then just turn it down a little ways. And I like to have like different thicknesses. So this, you're kind of wasting a blank. I mean, you can just make a pen or whatever if you want to do that, but I don't have time and I don't want to waste the hardware on samples. So I'll just turn this down and say, okay, that looked good. And then if I'm doing a brand new blank, I'm usually going to do probably 3 batches and turn one down before I feel convinced that I'm consistently making the same thing, like at least 3 batches. So here's my root beer float, and then this is the Think Pink blank. So this is the easiest way I've found to just get a little bit of a sample. But do I have any? It'd be good to show like a before and after. Well, I've got a little bit. I could show you. So I made some pens. I guess this would be the best. This might be the best comparison, I guess, of like what a blank looks like. So this is a blank that I made. My brother-in-law he needed a couple of pens made using Nevada's state colors. All right, so now you look at the outside of this blank. Let me see if I can get this thing centered, sort of. Get on camera here. And it looks fine. That's whatever. Okay, that's great. It's not super amazing, looking. Here's what one of these looks like turned. That looks nothing like the outside of the blank. That looks wicked, right? So, you don't rely on the outside of the blank. Don't worry about what's on the top of the thing after you've pulled the stir stick out. You have to wait till the end. Turn it back down and see what's on the inside to really understand what's happening on the inside of these things. Oh, and actually, one thing that I wanted to mention, guys, I got some new blanks that just dropped. I haven't posted on Instagram or anything. These are inspired by plumeria flowers. So my wife had, let me get that thing out of the way. Okay. My wife had a flower, a plumeria flower at our wedding in her hair. And so it was like white with pink and yellow. And so I love these. They're simple. They're very, they're elegant, but like I said, pretty simple. There's not a whole lot going on with these things. But they're available on the website now, and I got both sizes, the 8.5 and the standard 5.5s. So they make a really beautiful pen. This is actually, I made a pen and gave it to Jim Hines, a custom pen. That's the blank that I used. I was really happy with how it turned out. And so you end up with this kind of white and then this kind of mix of these yellows and pinks. And actually, because the yellow and pink kind of combine a little bit, there's actually a little bit of orange even that kind of comes out. Again, that might be kind of a visual optical thing, but you got kind of a yellow, pink, little bit of kind of an orange flavor. But again, these are called plumeria. Get you guys a link if anybody's interested. Just dropped those on Wednesday. And I got more blanks coming. I have a whole desk full of new new blanks that I haven't dropped yet. So keep your eyes peeled. If you guys want to know when I drop a new blank design, and I got some pretty killer ones coming up. Make sure to go to my website and sign up for the email newsletter. The email newsletter people also get discounts. So these things are, if you're an email subscriber, you get 15% off on new blank drops and there's other sales and things that I do that are only on the email subscriber thing. So if you want to be on top of everything and get the first dibs and some discounts, make sure to sign up for email. All right, so let's stop and see what's happening here. Yeah, I know the inside, it's nuts. And I got to be honest, guys, this is actually one of the biggest reasons why I didn't get into vertical pour blanks like off the bat, like first. Because if you do a brick, you waste a ton of resin, but you have to cut them. Like there's no question what's going on the inside of a brick, pour blank, because you cut it, right? So like I know exactly what I'm dealing with once I cut into it, and I have to cut them. The problem is cutting thousands of blanks sucks. It's not very fun. I really do not like having to do all that. It's a big waste of resin, and it's a waste of time. And so I finally was like, and when you get into kitless pen making, you can use square blanks. It's fine, but two things. I was never gonna make a kitless length blank that was square. I really don't want to have to deal with tipping a pressure pot on its side and doing all this stuff. So like I was never gonna do that way. And so getting into it, I finally got into kitless pen making and like really wanted to dive head first. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make blanks that are round because they're so much easier to start off with, and there were so many other advantages. And on top of it, with the inflation problems that we've had over the last few years, I needed to find a way. I was either going to have to raise prices or figure out a way to make things more efficient. So part of that equation is my time standing behind a table saw. For every brick, I got to make 24 cuts. I mean, that's time for every single one of these things. The tough thing is there's no way for me to get out of that with the team color blanks. They use a different resin, and this is the only way that I can pour them. They don't work vertically, so that kind of sucks. But I wanted to kind of move into the vertical pour stuff because I really like it, but I didn't have a lot of experience. So I'm kind of, at this point, it's been a few years of me doing it, but I like it better. I think it kind of works a little bit better to do it that way, but it is nuts that you have no clue what's going on with these things until you break into them. But once you've gotten enough experience pouring them that way and then turning them, seeing the results, you eventually feel confident and you're not like worried every single time you make blanks. Like, did that work? I don't know. You kind of have an idea, you can look at the outside and go, okay, you can finally kind of get an idea of what is it actually kind of going to look like. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of experience. So let's see here. What was Mark talking about? Make a box. Oh, with the plumeria blanks? They turn better. There's this weird heart thing in I can't see. Turn better than the square ones. Yeah, like if you're gonna make a kitless pen out of because I actually have customers that buy the team color blanks and make custom fountain pens. But first thing you're gonna have to do is make it round, and so like that's really a good reason to have a metal lathe, I think, because you can have it automatically just cut it down round. So that kind of helps a little bit. But yeah, I kind of, now that I've kind of gotten into the round ones, I'd much rather, I'm this close. The biggest problem is the team color blanks use Alumilite white resin. They don't have labels on it, but it's Alumilite white. And the thing is, and I always tell people I don't recommend messing with it because it's 2 minutes of working time. It's a very difficult resin to work with, and it can only do opaque. Like you can't add micas, there's no clear. And so the problem is though, my dye recipes all use that resin, which turns opaque white if you just mix A and B. So I can't use any of my recipes in Alumilite clear, which is wonderful. So if I would have done it again, I would have not messed around with Alumilite white. I would have just started with Alumilite clear and made all my blank recipes or the dye recipes using that. But back in the day, they didn't have, there was no, I didn't know of any opaque pigment. So it would have been a custom pigment every single time using what we talked about, where you're going with red or, you know, whatever you want to do. And then you got to add an opaque pigment to it, which means that you got to custom make every single one from scratch. If you're using Alumilite white, you can use these. So maybe this will make more sense. I don't have to make them opaque using Alumilite white, because the resin is basically adding that opacity. So I can get away with just using the dyes with that resin. And that's part of the reason why I started using it. I knew it was difficult, and I got to be honest, it took me probably 2 years to get proficient using it and get decent looking blanks. 2 years. And then it took me even longer to figure out the dye stuff, like getting custom dyes to work with it. But I liked it because back in the day I was making pens and trying to sell them, and I was like, oh, well, you're never going to have to paint tubes if you're using a resin that's totally opaque. Like you would never see through it. And so I'm kind of lazy, and that's why I ended up starting with that. Now I'm kind of looking back, and I'm seriously considering switching the team colors and starting from scratch and getting new recipes that work with clear so that I can pour them vertically. We'll see. I don't know. But anyway, guys, I hope you had a good time watching this one. I can't wait to see how these things look. We'll get a good idea. You know, I don't want to, you know, make everybody like kind of like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. When we pull these out, when I demold these, you know, to probably tomorrow, I think we'll get a good idea of what's going on with them. But we're not going to know for sure until we actually turn them. So I'm pretty excited. I've seen a few other you know, pen makers on Instagram. I follow some of the folks that make the custom pens, and I've seen some of the solid, you know, opaque colors rather than micas in some of those custom pens, and I'm like, ugh. So I'm pretty excited. That was another reason why I was pretty excited to do this one. I thought, oh, this would be a fun one to try some opaque colors, and just, you know, non-mica, and see what we get. So next week we'll turn one. I'm seriously considering. We didn't make any of the tall boys, but I could maybe use 2 of these and make a custom pen. It would take a few weeks for us to actually get these things, you know, done on the stream. But I'm getting to the point where I feel pretty good about myself. I still need to follow, you know, like a cheat sheet. Like I can't just whip out a custom pen on my own without, like, by memory. But for the most part, I think I could do it on the stream. It's just we'd have to kind of do like one piece at a time. So I don't know. In the comments of the video, if anybody's watching this back, or if you want to tell me, shoot a comment in the video description, not the chat, but the actual description where the comments are. Let me know if you want to see a custom pen made. Like I said, I can just take 2 of those things and we'll kind of put them together. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and get in the shop, do something with resin, or, you know, turn something up. And either way, have fun. Have a good day. So I will see you guys all on next live stream. And again, don't forget the Turner's Warehouse Ornament Challenge. You really want to be getting that thing kind of finished and get it in the mail so that you make sure that you get it to them and they have it in their hands by the 20th. Don't forget to go to the website to print out the entry form. You need to have that included also. All right, so good luck with your ornaments. The auctions are going to start on the 26th. So if anybody wants to get in on the bidding for mine or for any of them, the 26th is when it starts, and I'll have more information about that when we get closer to that. So anyway, guys, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you guys on the next stream.